Just show forth the Lord's death. Now watch the dark turn. See, we all celebrated this. My whole life we celebrated all of this. And then we got to right here. And things got quiet and they got bad in a hurry. Watch what Paul says, verse 27. Therefore, whoever eats the bread and drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty of the body and blood of the Lord. And everyone gets stoic and silent when you start to take communion when you get to the 27th verse, because things have took a sudden abrupt turn to the disastrous, because now you realize that if you take in an unworthy manner, then there are bad accompanying things. But I want you to notice something that never got pointed out a lot of times under a mixture gospel. See, whenever I heard 1 Corinthians 11:27 read and quoted, it would be quoted like this. I'm not even going to look at it because people that were quoting it never looked at it. Okay? I'm just going to quote it the way it was always quoted. Whoever takes communion and they're unworthy of it, they're guilty of killing Jesus. That's how it got quoted. Whoever takes communion and they're unworthy of that communion, that's just like killing Jesus. They're guilty of the body and the... Now you can imagine that, man, when the communion elements came by, you better just skip it. Right? I mean, not for me. Keep that moving, man. Just pass it on by. If it's time to get up and go up front in line to get communion, and it's one of those churches, if you're too embarrassed to say in your pew, you just went up and faked it. Didn't really get it. Because I'm not getting that, because I don't want to be guilty of killing, because I'm not worthy to take. How are you worthy? We would say, if you got sin in your life, you're not worthy. If you've been having bad thoughts, you're not worthy. If you haven't been working for Jesus, you're not worthy. Have you been living up to the standard of Christianity this week? If not, you're not worthy. Don't be taking this and not be worthy. But we didn't want what would come of that if that's where we stopped the sermon, because nobody would take. That'd be a boring communion service. How'd communion go? Well, nobody took. Why not? Because everybody was unworthy. So what we would do is we'd open the altars right before communion. And when you opened the altars, everybody came. Because better safe than sorry. You were fixing to possibly kill Jesus. So you came to an altar and you said, God, I just don't want anything in my life. I prayed this 100 times. Lord, I just don't want there to be anything in my life. Anything in my life, in my mind, in my heart, in my life that's unworthy of you, so that I can partake your body and your blood and I can be at peace today. Because, Father, I want to. Because it sounds like it's a good thing. But I sound like a bad guy. So I just, Lord, I mean, this is basically the prayer. It's a good thing. I'm not. But I don't want to be a bad guy, Lord. I want to be worthy. So if you'll just make me worthy, whatever that means right now, in the name of Jesus, I ask you to forgive me of all my sins. I ask you to take everything away from me and just make me worthy so that I can partake, and I can partake with good conscience. Give me the 28th verse real quick. But let a man examine himself, and then let him eat of the bread and drink of the cup. That's why we had the altar call. Because we needed a period of examination. And that period of examination would then bring to light all of our problems and our failures. Did you notice that the communion verses started out beautiful? Two common denominators that said, when you eat the body and drink the blood, remember Jesus. Did you remember that part? That was when we were having fun, right? Remember Jesus. And then it takes the dark turn where it's not talking about Jesus anymore. It's just talking about you. Examine yourself to see. So then let you eat of the bread and drink of the cup. 29. For he who eats and drinks in an unworthy manner eats and drinks judgment to himself, not discerning the Lord's body. It's just getting worse. If you eat and drink and here's how it was quoted. Again, I'm not going to read it because it was never read. It was just quoted. If you eat and drink unworthy, then you eat and drink damnation. God may actually come and get you with sickness and disease if you eat and drink this today and you're unworthy. I gave that whole common denominator stuff because I was setting you up for another common denominator that I hope you didn't miss. Look at the phrase unworthy manner in the middle of verse 29. Now go back, if you would. Go back to 27. 1 Corinthians 11:27. Therefore, whoever eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner. You see the common denominator? Unworthy manner. Unworthy manner is not unworthy people. Although it always got quoted to us, you're unworthy. You ain't been living right. Don't you dare come up here and take communion, and you're unworthy. And I believed it. I said, hey, they know the Bible better than I do. That must be what it says, unworthy. In fact, it took me years to realize that the text did not say anything about me, but it did say something about my manner, something about the way that I was partaking communion. If the common denominator in the 24th and 25th verses is to remember Jesus, and then the common denominator in that dark passage is not to remember me, but so that the way in which I partake of communion is proper, then I don't need to do a self-inspection to see if I'm right. I just need to make sure that I understand what I'm doing. Go back to where we were at, 29. 1 Corinthians 11:29. For he who eats and drinks in an unworthy manner, what do? They eat and drink judgment to themselves. Why? Because they don't discern the Lord's body. So what's an unworthy manner? It would be to eat and drink but not understand what Jesus did for me. Do I have one more verse there? 1 Corinthians 11, verse 30? Yes. For this reason, many are weak and sick among you, and many sleep. And sleep would have been the Old and New King James Version of die. So for the cause, what cause? For what reason? Because you don't discern the Lord's body. There's many people weak, many people sick, and many people died before their time. And I believe that. I've seen that my whole life in the church. People that shouldn't have been weak, they shouldn't have been sick, and they didn't have to die yet. But they were weak, sickly, and dead because they did not see that Jesus had paid for them. And if they had had a revelation that his body was broken for them, I think they could have added years to their life. And that's why I'm believing for health through the finished work of Jesus Christ. I don't want to be guilty of the body and the blood of my Lord just because I, in an unworthy manner, partake of the bread, not realizing that it was broken for me. I want that knowledge and that understanding that, yes, indeed, it was broken for me.